Now, Nigeria's space program is reputed to be among Africa's largest, with 3 satellites in orbit.
How big is this space economy?
Globally, we believe that at least by 2035, they say it was up to $3 trillion. The African ecosystem this year, people are quoting about 20 billion. And it's huge.
I saw a newspaper publication about the rise of profits.
And these are things people told us, nah, you can't do it, it's down, satellite is old. Satellite is old, and new entrants are coming to this market. In Africa, there are over 800 million people that are yet to be connected. Nigeria, you still have less than 50% broadband penetration. Why do you think everybody's coming here? This is the largest consumer market in Africa. 230 million people. Even though you sell to only half of that, that's 100 million people. That's more than some countries.
What has been your biggest wins since coming into office?
And when I see segments like the broadcast that we literally own over 50% of the market share in Nigeria, I'm very proud of the work we are doing in the defense sector. These are sectors that I've always thought only foreigners should do it.
For most people who might obviously say Starlink, do you think there is room for Africa to actually still compete in this global space economy? There's a popular saying, Ajengule.
Ajegule.
Ajegule. I really don't know how to pronounce it. So Ajegule.
Yes.
I hope I got it right. I mean, and the typical name of the meaning I heard was actually that wealth has landed. And it's actually a very core part to your story.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we all know, anyone that has grown up in Nigeria knows that that's not actually what Ajengule represents. What has that played in your upbringing and in your identity as a person?
I told someone, I think I was speaking to someone the other day, and I said, I see my life in phases. So I spent the first 27 years of my life in AJ City, as we call it.
I mean, nobody will know looking at you, looking all posh.
And I think that's why sometimes people underestimate you. So I think the early part of my career, it was more like I was running from poverty, because AJ City was a slum. These were migrants that have come from very rural areas coming to Lagos for a better life. And some of these places, my house was a reclaimed swamp. So literally when it rains, first of all, the house has sunk because it was built on a swamp and it wasn't properly treated before it was built. So when it rains, it floods. And because poverty, you didn't have a bed, you're sleeping on the floor, you wake up, your legs is inside a pool of water. Like when it rains, even now you get a little bit of deja vu, because you knew that you go home and you scoop water that day. And I think coming from that perspective is brought some kind of, if it doesn't break you, I believe it will make you stronger. There's a mental tennis, there's a mental capacity that's giving you to withstand some kind of stress or to be clear about your priorities. Like I always tell people when I have some kind of problems, I'm like, these are champagne problems, like they're big people problems. Some people's problems are just very basic: food, shelter. Those things are really very basic. But for somebody, it was really important in Ajegule. So you can imagine now if you have some kind of problems, you put it in perspective compared to where I'm coming from, there's no problem. It's a walk in the park. So that's kind of, I think that kind of capacity was there, and it gives you that ability to really, I think in terms of how you fight in life is different. But that's the first phase, because I was running from poverty. The second phase is when I started going into impact. Then it became a story of how do I make sure beyond me, other people coming from my, my kind of, background, other people also get to see that life can be better. It's not as we thought it in Ajegule, because it looked hopeless. Yeah. We came with this perspective that this is a do or die. We're all doomed with this poverty. So you want to shed that form of life to give people some kind of hope As in a way you use your resources to educate people, you use your resources to support their health care, that kind of stuff.
I mean,
You
but what gives you hope? Like, I mean, I can imagine growing up in such gloom in a country like Nigeria, first of all, not even like maybe you grew up in the projects in the US or something, but in such, first of all, in the darkest of the dark place that is dark. And I mean, the only thing I remember about Ajegule group, I never grew up in Lagos. I grew up in the Middle Belt North.
Yeah.
And the only thing I remember was Daddy Shoki.
Daddy Shoki. Baba Frayo lived on my street. I knew him way to his sisters. Daddy Shoki, a bit far away. I think because when I lived in Ajegule, we started living in Tunkarimo, some place called Tunkarimo. Okay. I think Daddy Shoki used to live in Okorobo. That's a little bit down there. So these are the kind of people we all as, not me personally, a huge population aspire that as a way to get out of poverty. Now, our road was the tougher road. Education was tougher because you're coming from the perspective that this is a gamble. Entertainment was more like if you hit it big. You're famous, you're popular, the wealth comes with it. Education is a gradual progression. You don't know. You start by getting that job, then you start to climb. And it's a gamble. People don't know. Will she get promoted? Will she get a bigger role? Will she get sacked? There's all kinds of ifs in climbing up. And remember, for someone coming from Ajegule, most times you're doing it without access. So think about it, the odds are stacked against you. I keep saying it is God's grace. I almost became a security guard. And it would have been a different story. It wouldn't have mattered. I would just be one of the numbers. It's just that day, I skipped the interview, which I would have aced because I think I had malaria. Wow. But I was that desperate. And this is someone that studied engineering, made a 2-1, was top 10 in her class.
In UNN?
But I was very happy after all my options had showed me that there was no way out to take that job and end that 20K and just keep it moving so that you can just have food, basic food.
Wow.
So I think...
So education being a pathway for you, was it charted by your parents?
So that's where I really give it to my parents. I think one of the things they ingrained in us is like, those other options are not the best. Your best option out of this, like it was a daily mantra, was education. Education, and they would invest in it. You can think about it, someone that really didn't have resources invested in education. So it meant things like you were willing to work with them, because I would go to that school because I hadn't paid school fees. By the second month in the term, they're chasing you out. But it was okay. Because you know that your parents are trying to look for the money. In worst case, you'd be out of school for a week. And I think it's the case with my brother. He was out of school for like a term.
Wow.
Then, you make it back into the system and you take up. So you always wanted to go the extra because you had been told this is the way out. So
was that like a conversation within the family, like saying that we are trying to find our way out? Or was it an active conversation, or is this more like a benefit of hindsight?
I think it was an active conversation in a way they did it softly. So it's not like they sat you down.
Okay.
They encouraged you. So some of the things my dad used to do was, if you study, my dad studied, he read, he was a voracious reader. But you know how he used to support me? When he saw me studying, he would study with me. So I'm reading there, he's reading a newspaper. How can you read a newspaper for 4 hours? No, but he knew that if he left that position, I might go to bed. And he wanted me to study as long as it required. So he stayed up with me. And I'll have that candle, studying, knowing that Dad is there, he's reading. I'm still studying. Sometimes they made it really verbal, these things these other kids are doing. People, because you will show up, your neighbor is dead. Why? Your neighbor decided it was armed robbery that was better. And one morning, they say he never came back because they went somewhere to steal in the cage and they got shot.
Oh, they got shot.
Your other neighbor decided prostitution was the best. Like, I had people, friends. And prostitution comes with all kinds of things like HIV, violence, and sometimes they never make it back. So I think my parents were subconsciously trying to say, hey, you see, that is not it. This one you're doing, that is the right one. And they backed it. So it wasn't just talk. there was action. They put their money where their mouth is. So my mother would sell everything and anything to pay that school fees. She'd sell her clothes, her jewelry. She would collect empty containers. These empty containers were...
But isn't that this women do when they
Yes,
go to
empty bottles, empty tin cans, whatever. And she sell her fabric, her wrappers to make sure that you go to school. So you become invested in it as well because you see the effort they're making.
So did this put like a chip on your shoulder going through life? I mean, when you went to school, most likely I'm sure you met with other people who didn't necessarily come from similar backgrounds.
So to be frank, I didn't know it did until I think it was my fourth year in engineering. I made the faux pas. I will not talk about it. I made some error. That night I cried. You know why I cried? Because I thought about my parents. Am I going to go back? What am I going to tell them? I think that's when I knew that the weight was on my shoulder. It wasn't just me. It was everybody believing that she could make it happen. And it occurred to me that I was fighting for more than myself.
That was the moment you felt you were fighting for more than yourself.
Yes. I was fighting for more stuff. And I think mentally what it has made me also, and in some of the things I do, what is the mental goal or vision that is empowering me to do it, or the drive, was the fact I keep telling myself, that's for the little Jane. Because that's what I wanted done to me. That's what I thought. I'm doing this today because these were the things that kept me moving. So what kept me moving? Is to hear stories like this. I just lived on the stories. So that lady made it too. Then it's possible. These things our parents are saying is possible. Education can make. The lady said she went to school, then she did this, then she did that. Those stories were priceless. But because those stories helped me, I tend to do it. Because that's my gift to the little Jane. Because there's some other little Jane out there that probably will get to hear this.
Interesting.
And that could be what she will live on.
I mean, what were those stories for you? Like, who were the people?
The stories for me was, I used to have a family friend. She used to work for Unilever. She was an admin officer, like a secretary.
She came from AJ
City. She lived in AJ City. So she used to do tiny things like say, I should come to her office to pick up something. And you know, when you come now, the way you show up with your bedroom slippers looking a bit ragged, the security guard, she'll come and take me up to her office. Then I get to experience the office. I watch. I see people talking, professional. Then I get like, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. And she'll tell me their stories. Oh, that one, she studied engineering. Oh, that, those kind of stories were very inspiring to hear. Just to listen. And sometimes these stories are handed down. Somebody will tell you, like a good friend of mine.
You get one sister already.
Thank you very much. A good friend of mine, Olika, if you're there, shout out. Her brother finally got into university. He would tell us all these stories. So we're all then inspired. I used to come to her house to hear those stories. Those stories were important. They kept us going.
Stories, yeah.
So those stories are powerful because you paint a picture. I then realized I didn't need the money, to be frank. If you had given me so much money, maybe that wouldn't have even solved the problem. I needed that hope and the stories that gave me the ability to go for it. It wasn't really the money.
So how did you come up? So was this the stories that inspired you to study engineering? Because I think from one of the things I heard from one of your talks somewhere was the fact that you chose engineering because it was the hard thing to do. You heard it was hard.
So that was in hindsight. Then I realized that I had a tendency to be drawn to challenges. So that engineering was just me overhearing my mom with a friend talking, and the friend was like, "Oh, stories. My son is studying engineering, but engineering is a tough course, but it's a good course." I think he was studying petrochemical engineering. There were this amount of people in the class that by graduation, the way she was going about it, I'm like, it's a tough one. I want to do that one. So I just realized I had a tendency to want to change narratives. I had a tendency to, when you tell me it can't be done, you get me interested. Then I lean in. I'm like, so you say it can't be done.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. Maybe my mom. My mom is very driven, and she could be very ambitious. My dad has a lot of tenacity, to keep going at something. Probably my mom, but I know, because it could be my mom. Because my mom will go at anything. She doesn't believe in this is impossible. She would go at it. So that could be it. I could never really pinpoint. I never really spent time.
Thinking about it with hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, So I usually have this thing I say when I advise. Well, a mentor told me,
Yeah.
and I always tell it to any young person I also speak to, any fellow young person I speak to. I say that if your bully is running after you, and you have the opportunity to go down or go up the stairs, where will you go? And the mentor, I looked at my mentor and I was like looking to him for the answer, like, I don't know anyone now. And he said, no, if a big bully guy is pursuing you, run upstairs. Because when you run upstairs, he will get tired.
He can't catch a
He can't
big
catch you. So what he was saying was, learn to do hard things, that the poverty that is pursuing you will not be able to.
So there was a part of that, because I always used to tell myself, shoot for the stars. You have nothing to lose. You land in the clouds. Just shoot for the stars. And I think that's where my friend Clementina comes in to the story.
Okay.
I have never seen someone as ambitious as her, so driven. We will set audacious goals. This is awesome. I remember my first computer I bought. So there I was an intern. Then I was studying engineering. I think I was in third year.
You went to UNN and studied engineering.
I went to UNN, but internship, you do it in the city.
Okay.
So I was interning. There's a place in Apapa. It was some microchip, microlab. It was a computer thing. They were, but I was driven. I want to have a computer as well. So I was having a conversation with my friend. I was like, Tina, it would be good to buy a computer, but I need to save up. I'm saving up.
Were you still living in AJCT at this time?
I was staying in AJCT.
Okay.
And Tina would, you have some friends that pump you up.
Yeah, they believe.
Just do it. This is me. Even as I'm telling myself, I'm like, this is a stupid idea. But she's like, do it. How much is it? I said, I think it's 33,000 naira. But I'm going to save. But from all look of things, for this 6 months internship, I might make up to 10K. I'll buy the RAM. And I'll keep the RAM. Then because I cloned the entire thing. So in those days, you could clone it. You buy the pattern. And Tina like,
they still do it too now.
They say all this, yeah. So Tina was like, no, I would help. I'll put in some money. So this is how audacious our goals will be. See, we'll do things like, by the time, because I put an article out on LinkedIn earlier in the week, by the time I was in my final year, I'd done all the Microsoft certifications. Ask me, how did I do that? Where did I get the money?
Where?
Myself and Tina. So Tina, fortunately, had access to funds. My dad was late. Okay. And there was some, as you have, the dad was very proactive to have some kind of, I wouldn't call it a foundation, but the funds were reserved to take care of the kids. Because the father had some kind of real estate. Okay. So I think one of the requirements, because dad was like a lecturer or a teacher, was that all the kids would be trained. So the funds from the real estate were always used to train the kids. But because Tina, just like me, was living in a place of nowhere, she was used to humble beginnings. She didn't think she could live. She didn't want to be a flamboyant person. So she'd be like, let's do this with it. We will come to Lagos, take a Microsoft exam, but we'll just do that. And by the time we're in final year, we've done all the Microsoft certifications. We're now into the Cisco ones. We would do things like, because we both loved impact,
Was she also studying engineering?
Yes, she was. She was a year my junior, but we became friends because she was also interested. How do you make a first class? Because then everybody knew I was trying to make a first class. So you give them tips, you share, you say, okay, I read this, I did this for this lecture, I do that. Okay. Make sure you don't do this, study this way. So we kind of became friends. At some point, we're in the same hostel. But then we're also into impact. We wanted to share our stories also with the younger generation. That's how we ended up being the co-founders for IEEE Women in Engineering, because we became student members of IEEE, that's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. Yes. But we found out there was no women arm, and there were other branches.
I mean, you're only like 10 women out of 100 engineers. I mean, up to now, we still have those numbers.
When I studied engineering, there were 100 of us in the class. There were only 10 girls. We were 1/10 of the class. So we will do these things. We will create impact projects. We're like, let's go to the school. We'll talk to the kids about the girls, about, girls in STEM, studying engineering, taking away all that perspective or the wrong narrative about engineering is based on your physical strength, or for you to study engineering, you have your ascended gender. And we're like, this is us. We're studying engineering. Look at how we look. This is how engineers look. There's no certain gender stereotype tied to it. There's no need for physical strength. It's actually your mental capacity, your ability to solve problems. So it was good so we had all this overlapping values.
But then you lost Tina.
Oh yes, I did. I did. And I didn't know how it impacted me. It took me.
What happened?
So it was 2016. So Tina and I were now working. So we used to help each other like that, climb the ladder. So I would do an internship like, Tina, you're doing internship here. This place is the bomb. And Tina would do internship and say, Jane, when it's time to work, this is now the reigning company, the engineer. That's how we helped each other.
But you were 1 year apart from each other.
1 year apart. So that helped.
Yeah.
So I started working for a company called Egerton. And when I knew they were also recruiting, I told her, this is the place to be, girl. This is the place to be. Because after I'd been in Egerton for like 2 years, I traveled to like 20 countries. Like they would send you all kinds of places. So Tina and I were working in the same company. So we check in on each other. Then I was doing a master's. So Tina also wanted to do a master's. So she started a master's in the program as well. So that was this must have been 2017 now. I remember the night before, I checked in on her. She was still in the office. I said, oh, remember the MBA book I gave you? I want to take one for my assignments and stuff like that. She said, okay, no problem. I'll find time and return it during the week. But she was still in the office. So I went home. I think I got that call in the morning. Because then she was married. I wasn't married, but she just gotten married. That Clementina was dead. And I couldn't piece it. I came into the office. It was chaotic.
What happened?
We were calling. So Tina had left the office. I think if I remember, maybe about 8 p.m. Because we would work late, just that I didn't work late that day. Not because we desired to, but because you're doing other things. You're studying, reading for your MBA. You catch up on all your stuff. Yeah. It's free internet, free everything. You just do what you need to do, then go home. So she was going home. And that time we were fortunate. So the company did have drivers that would take you home if you walked late. So the driver was taking her home. And it was at Akpombo Bridge, just there. The car stopped. And the driver said he had to check something. And then these guys came. And they shot her. As I understood, they shot her. It was her ribs. Because they were asking her for her purse. And I think the purse was somewhere at the back of the car. Her handbag. And I know Tina, there was no money in that purse. We were just the same. Probably a card, but there would be no cash. Very small cash. So they were asking and struggling for that, threatening her, and they shot at her. Because they shot at her with one of these guns that I heard the pellets were spread.
Yes, spread, okay.
Because she was still, she held on to the thing. She was bleeding. Like, okay, let's go to the hospital. But consider the situation. They went from one hospital to the other because hospitals were reluctant to treat gunshot wounds. Yeah. They finally got a hospital. But by the time they started, treating her, I think it had been too late. The pellets had spread into some of the organs. By the time the husband showed up, it was, and not just a couple of hours, maybe like 3 hours later. Oh. It was bad. Tina had, at that time, her daughter was about a year or two old. Yeah, 18 months, yeah. She had a daughter. It was bad. Yeah. It was bad. And I didn't know how much impacted me until I think this was about 7 years later. I was running a Harvard leadership program. And during the Harvard leadership program, you have a coaching session.
Yeah.
And in the coaching session, you talk, or you have like a board of advisors talking about your vision, what you're trying to achieve. And I remember the coach asked me one question. What is stopping you from, it's like, what's your biggest goal in life? Like, what's the biggest thing you achieve? And you're like, this is, and I talked about how I wanted to create impact in this way. We're working with young girls and women, and I was just going off. And she asked the follow-up question, what's one thing that's scaring you from doing that? And that's unlike me. I don't cry easily. And I started weeping.
Why?
Because everything just came rushing. That for years, I'd avoided doing that because of Tina.
Why?
Because we did that together. We shared that goal together. We had that vision. We were working together in tandem. And when she died, I felt it's not worth it. This is what you get for doing that. There's no need trying to save anybody or save or do anything. Just go and live your lowly life and hide yourself. You just get into trouble. You try to do this. So I was now in the preserve yourself mode, not live your life mode. I didn't care about what your purpose was, what you're drawn to. I was just going to do my thing and live on this earth and move on. I think that's when it occurred to me. That's what I've been doing for the past 7 years. I've been running away from myself. Because that's the answer I gave. I didn't want to do it because of Tina. Because in doing it, I remember her and it was painful.
To have to do it alone.
Yes, because we're going to do it together. We're going to run this thing together, do this thing. We were helping each other. Now I was left alone to do this. And I thought maybe if you do that, that's what's going to happen to you. And I think we ended up having that heart-to-heart. I was like, I think it just dawned on me. Maybe if you did it, then she will be happy wherever she is.
Yeah.
Then maybe if you did it, you would also give other young girls permission
To do it.
to do it. Not because it's easy, but because it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, because you've actually lived out a very interesting journey that even right now, your story is a lot of inspiration to a lot of young girls. I mean, even men too, but like a lot of young girls from AJ City. So talking about your career, I mean, you went to Ericsson, started building out from there. I think that's where you and Tina worked.
Yes.
And then you kept building on your career. You kept building. What was that journey like for you before you came to the public sector?
I used to think I had big problems in the private sector until I came to the public sector. I used to think I had now a different set of problems. But I think private sector was interesting. I think in summary, because private sector is profit driven, your goals towards your stakeholders, even when we tell you we do CSR, it's all tied back to we have to be commercially focused and profit driven. So in a way, it drove a lot of the agenda. Whatever we're executing, it was heavily performance driven, but it was very rewarding in terms of material reward. But I was restless. I was already starting to become restless. I wanted more at the office. Because I was heading Middle Eastern Africa at my last role before I took the public sector.
Facebook, right?
Yes. But I was always drawn to the African startups, the African entrepreneurs. Why the way we defined them was poor, and they never had a chance. Literally, for my two regions, the Middle East will always gain whatever incentive we wanted to, but the Africans never stood a chance because the criteria we set made them too far away. Then I was trying to bootstrap them into the system. I was like, no, we have to do it this way. Even the scenario where the company was saying they wanted to pull out of Africa, it was a personal thing. Like, I thought about it. I reflected. I even told myself I'll be calm about it, but I was restless. I sent a whole long email to the VP that I didn't even have any bearing to be sending. But because I spoke to my boss. I was lobbying for, you think there is a whole personal agenda. And I remember one day, because I was like going through the motions, I heard the VP was coming to town. I had no reason to head in that direction. I was heading in another direction. During that morning, I heard the VP was coming to town. I woke up, dressed up, I went to work just for the meeting. I showed up at the meeting. I waited quietly at the back. She came for something else. They were celebrating something. I didn't have to be in that audience. Then she said it was time for questions. That's the wrong mistake. Oh, yeah. My question didn't have anything to do, but I thought she needed to hear from me personally how I felt. Because when I was talking about, the decision we make, how I thought it was wrong. Because if you're saying this is the future, you should be investing in it. It doesn't have to give you the commercial reward. Now, that's why you invest in the future. You're going to wait it out. If you pull out now, you wouldn't stand a chance, because when you come when others have taken the market, what do you expect? The market can tell. The market will reciprocate, will show more affection to those that stood the test of time with them. Because I've seen that play out time and time again.
True.
So I really wanted to communicate that message. And I wasn't meant to be doing it in our audience because we were talking about something else. But I felt I'd be talking to all my bosses, and nobody was, getting the picture. And this lady reported directly to Mark. So I thought maybe she should hear it. And I went up and I told her that, I have a question. Didn't have to do anything with this. But I thought, I would like to hear from her thoughts about the African market. And I went and I told her what I thought. And I thought that was a wrong move. We're trying, she had to say, see me after the What's the name? Jane. Jane, please, can you see me after this session?
And how?
And I think that's when it became clear I was becoming restless. I wanted more.
Did you achieve what you wanted?
Well, I didn't technically achieve it because they still did what they wanted to do.
Okay.
Their business, they'll do what they wanted to do. Businesses are always looking for the best profitable returns. Not necessarily always. They don't. At the end of the day, you are just a number on paper.
Yeah.
So if the numbers are not adding up and the shareholders want more, they will do what they need to do to deliver the numbers. If it means reducing headcount, leaving a market, and sometimes it's just a tactical approach.
Yeah.
They do that, get the numbers up, and they come back.
Yeah, it might just be to meet up with certain.
Yeah, just to meet up with certain criteria. So they do that a lot. But of course, you're toying with an entire region and market. So it was clear I was getting restless. So when the call came, so I already told myself.
I mean, you didn't lobby for it.
No, I already told myself a long time ago I'll never work with public sector because I interned at what used to be NEPA the first time I did my internship. Oh my God, when I was there, this used to make me do odd things. I'm like, oh goodness, I'm studying engineering. I want to be where the transformer is when they're repairing. They make you go around on errands, take this thing to room thing, take this thing to room 3, 4. I was just lucky that I finally met some engineer guy that, got interested. I started, taking me to where the engineers are. So I could go to site or go to field, see those stuff. But if not, I was stuck with these ladies that were turning me into a housemaid. So I already told myself I'm never going to work in the public sector I can't. So when the call came, because I was restless and I wanted more, I think going through that process of making the call, I think anybody's logical analysis didn't add up because I spent 3 months processing it with my husband.
How did the call come?
How did it call?
Where were you when you had it?
So when I got the call, I was taking a walk in the middle of the night, probably like 11 p.m. You know how you do those walks? My husband and I would take a walk. Okay. Because we lived in a very serene.
Okay, this is like 11 p.m. walk.
So you could take a walk. You could take a walk at 11 p.m., especially in the summer because it would be bright.
Okay, where were you?
I was in Dublin.
Okay, yes.
I was in Dublin. So I got the call. I didn't really particularly, it was like, so, I said, okay, let's talk later. So even when they called me later to reference, I didn't even pick. I was like, oh, those guys, they should wait till the morning. I'll talk to you in the morning. But when I was having that conversation, I think it was mentally done. It's just not what you wanted. You don't want to sit on the sidelines. You want to be part of the solution. You're tired of complaining. You're tired of telling other people, shouldn't we do this? You want to take a seat at the table, then do what you said you think it should be done. And that was my anchor. I want to be part of the solution. I'm not saying the system is perfect, but I want to be at the table and be part of the solution. I don't want to be at the sidelines complaining or telling everybody how we could have done it this way, that way was better. So I remember that for 3 months, as we processed, it was like someone died in my house. It's like a grave. Yes, everybody was sad. Why? Because everybody saw the upside, what it was going to cost me. And it was scary.
Everybody saw the what?
What it was going to cost me. That decision was going to cost me a lot.
Yeah,
how do people perceive politicians in Nigeria?
How do you?
Have you thought about how people perceive politicians?
No, but I mean, it's quite interesting that you say this because, in a typical Nigerian upbringing, a typical Nigerian household, if you hear that your mom or your dad gets public office, because of the way we've been raised up, and I think the corruption, sweet perks around it, is joy. It's great news,
so
right?
If you have different frame, it's very, very difficult because you've spent 25 years building a career on integrity. That's your brand. That's what you go for. You spent 25 years trying to solve problems, promoting economic wealth with a baseline. It has to be based on integrity. Now you wanted to go into a sector where it was clear everybody assumed anybody there will be corrupt or is going to be corrupted. And you were willing to take that risk. Because people already judged you before.
So your greatest care was the fact that this could impede on, or this could
So I think
affect
people that love me, that was their biggest worry. That okay, you have built a brand for years, positioned yourself. This is what you believe, and now you are going to take this stake and do this. Now, what is it going to? What is it? What are you trying to achieve? This. Can you do it in a different way? Because people told me, oh, but you can still create impact in the private sector. You can still do what you're doing, help young girls. You can invest, build schools. Because at that time, I was trying to build the library in Ajegule. So we're going through that motion. Should we build? Should we acquire? So I was really trying to do what I thought that's my purpose. I was still there. I was still passionate about helping women, mentoring women, supporting startups in Africa. I was doing everything I thought I would do for that market or for the nation. But I thought, this is different because you do it at scale.
Okay.
You do it at scale, you become part of and now, all those things we complain about the policy, that you are having a seat at the table. And then your voice matters, but it was going to cost you a lot. Resources. You take a pay cut. Serious pay cut. We're coming from private sector. So you're taking a pay cut.
I mean, coming from working for the likes of Meta, working for Mark Zuckerberg.
I was an expatriate,
yes,
technically. So
yeah.
you're earning in Forex, and therefore you're living way above inflation at home.
Yes.
Like literally
So your responsibility, you were able to sort it out in Nigeria easier than...
It was easy. Those things didn't used to cost me. I was funding students because it didn't cost me anything to fund them. Literally funding them even in private universities. Because to me, it was nothing. It's like $1,000 and they get, you keep them going 4 years and they're out. But that meant a lot because that one person you funded is going to fund 10 other people.
Yeah.
Because that's why I used to tell them, now all I ask, I don't want you to buy me any gift, nothing. All I ask, you replicate what you've been given. So you go back and do the same. That's all I wanted.
From what you said, I mean, it's quite interesting that 3 months it took you to accept to do this role as the MD, CEO of Nigeria Communications and Satellites Limited. What finally made you choose to do it?
So I think 3 months, it didn't take me 3 months. 3 months it took me to get my loved ones to go on the journey with me.
Oh, wow.
I was already restless and I was like, I'm doing it.
Oh, wow.
And everybody knew she said she's doing it. Now we're all in trouble. And everyone was trying to convince me, maybe you shouldn't do it. What are you trying to achieve? Are there other ways to achieve it? So I think that was the discussion that was going on. And because if it's not announced, it's not official. It's only when it's announced and then it becomes official. So that process, it was like someone died in my house for 3 months.
Convincing.
It was like, because we were having those conversations every day, looking at the pros and the cons. Okay, if you do take it, what's the impact? Impact on the kids, on my marriage, impact on my resources, impact on other things I'm doing. So there's a lot to consider. And yes, it was a tough one, I would say.
But what are your family obviously plays, and you've been in this role for over 2 years.
Yes.
What are the sacrifices that no one sees? Because the typical Nigerian will see a person in public service. There's obviously that great distrust on the government that exists between the citizenry and the public sector. And generally, they'll look at you and be like, this woman, what do you mean? You dey enjoy Joe? You be big.
That's the assumption. They were like, oh, I enjoy. But there's a lot of part of the job that gives you joy. But there's also the impact. So I'll tell you what gives me joy. So one of the things I realized, and which is why I'm so grateful for the role, is when you create impact, sometimes it's continent-wide. That policy you helped promote will give a chance to every other country on the African continent. Just because you were at that table and you pushed the agenda, you were their voice. Now you roll out some projects, they're nationwide. And of course, if you make the right decision, that means people would have it irrespective of, they don't need no access. They would have it because they need to have it. And those nations, they make you happy. You see that everybody is now getting to benefit from technology. So those things really make me happy.
But what are the sacrifices? At what
Sacrifices.
cost?
I think if I looking at the journey, people that paid the highest price for the role is my immediate family, my husband and my kids. Yes, they pay the highest price. And I keep saying it. They for me are the true champions. For those of us that take on this crazy journey.
I mean, you left Dublin, the beautiful.
Everybody
Dublin.
was jackpying. Someone told me you're doing reverse
jackpot.
Because everybody was headed that direction, and you were like, okay, we're headed the other direction. Interesting.
So let's talk about night concert.
Yes.
Assuming duties at night concert. I think one of the things I think a lot of people that might be watching this may never know. Some people might have never even heard of night concerts. A lot of Nigerians are not necessarily paying attention to night concert. What do they even do?
So
why do they even exist? Why should we even care about it?
That's a very interesting question. That was one of the biggest challenges I faced. I didn't even know that was going to be a problem. Because when I first came into night concert, like most of us that don't know, is Nigerian Communications Satellite. So it's the satellite company owned by the Nigerian government, and it monetizes
and it's headed by this powerful woman.
Commercializes. Lots of people don't know that we have a satellite. Some people think the satellite we have is disappeared. No, we do have a satellite in space. And the technology is so impactful, especially in places like ours, where access is a barrier.
Okay.
But access creates opportunity, because that villager having a phone could mean a lot. Apart from being able to reach loved one in the cities, they keep in tune with news, they can be part of the digital economy. She could then have your mobile money, do her transactions without going to the bank. So even though there's no bank where she lives, she can have it. She can have access to digital commerce. She can buy things from some other state, some other place, and it can be sent to where she is. She could also trade. It creates this whole economy that allows it be inclusive, irrespective of where you are in Nigeria. And access does that. It bridges that divide. And I think it takes vision for a government to have thought about that and went ahead, that for development, I want to invest. There are few countries in Africa that can do that.
How many countries in Africa have their satellites?
So currently, I think about 19 countries have attempted to go to space, because, it has a lifespan. So sometimes people are not able to go back, but 19 countries have done that. But it's an expensive venture, because some do it, a tiny satellite, 9 months. Nigeria has been doing this for 20 years.
So Nigeria has been in space for the last 20 years.
As night concert.
As night concert.
Yes. So it's a huge commitment. Like literally, people are thinking like Africa is backward. You are setting a pace to say, no, we can do it. We can also be that sovereign to support our own development using technology. So that's an ambitious goal to go for. But to find out that even the beneficiaries are not aware of it. And when you're not aware of something, you can't use it.
Yeah.
Or the beneficiaries don't even believe it does exist, or they don't even know what it does. So there's all these complications in terms of the awareness. That was a rude shock I faced, because when I came in, first few months we did our assessment. Some parts of the technology was not working. We invested a lot in making sure that we get it working. So you got it working as usual. Private sector, when you fix it, customers will come. Then I realized people had no clue what we were talking about. Some people didn't know it exists. Some people thought it existed, but it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Some people didn't believe in it because they thought it was government backed, so it shouldn't. It took a lot of effort, even convincing similar government agencies to use it. At some point, we had to go to private sector, because I thought, okay, maybe we'll prove a point that if they can use it, then you have no right not to use it. But it's been an interesting journey, because if I see how far we have grown, because when I took office, I would say that, so one of the two key technologies we can do is that we can provide broadband. And broadband is what you will say internet.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean internet, the ability to communicate, because it can be a private network without being on the internet. But we can provide broadband, and we can do it when it's very complicated. On a moving train, on a moving ship, on a moving car where there is no terrestrial, where there's no coverage, there's no MTN, Glow, there's no Airtel, we can do it. So we can do these in the middle of the ocean, wherever. If there's a sky, we can provide connectivity. So it makes it a very unique case to bring about inclusion, because in remote areas, if you can't do your normal mobile operators, you can use it. And you can use it in very difficult situations as well. Defense, these different scenarios I talked about. So it made it really unique and interesting in terms of development or, sovereignty or, defense. But a lot of people didn't even know that it can do that. Or then some didn't know that it actually existed.
Yeah.
So there's a group of people, that's their problem. There's a group of people that had a problem with the fact that it was government backed. So they felt that it wouldn't be reliable. Now, I'm not saying they're entirely wrong. There's some truth to that. But even when we've made a lot of effort, it was still tough because the mindset was like, oh, it's government backed. These things people are not. So it took a lot of effort to start winning over clients back. And we're still doing that, trying to create awareness, trying to be visible, trying to educate the public, going even to remote places to enable the audience. Because if you can do that, people then have a better appreciation, showing use cases so people start to get a sense. Because sometimes I believe in show and not tell. Rather than tell you we have KU ban, KU ban, I only show you what it does. Show you how a farmer uses it. Because if I've shown you how a farmer uses it, then you get the picture. Because I execute it on a farm, a large-scale farm, and we show you scenarios how that farmer is using that access. He puts IoT in the soil. He can measure the soil temperature, humidity, the nutrients. He puts IoT even in his like cattle, whatever things he wants to track or measure or monitor. And using satellite, we can allow him to do it remotely. Because he can do that, guess what? He can predict things like yield. What will be the yield of that size of farm? He can tell the parts of the farm that are not going to yield well or have issues, and he can intervene. Because that part is not properly irrigated, we need to irrigate it. That part doesn't have proper nutrients. From the data, he can intervene. Even he can tell the cattle is pregnant, the cattle is sick. He can tell. And with that, he can be more efficient in how the resources of the farm or how he sweats his assets. And then he can predict revenue.
Wow.
The implication is huge for the farm. So sometimes it's just better to show. Because then if I start talking about sector, maybe people also, technology can be a scary word for others. So when you show them.
I mean, let's take it sector by sector. What do you think is the most impactful thing that excites you about, that you feel if we achieve this with what NIGHTCOMSAT exists to do, will cause a lot of national...
I think it's to show impact in sectors. There's some key sectors I would like to say that is very clear. Healthcare, education, defense, agriculture. Just for starters.
Healthcare, education, defense.
Agriculture. Those four. Those are just... Because no matter how remote the school is, if you want them connected to the internet so that they can have a learning management system, so they can access online libraries, so that they can have a remote teacher. The teacher doesn't, because sometimes the problem is how you communicate the content. Yes. And sometimes in remote areas, they don't have those quality teachers because nobody wants to go there. So the physics teacher doesn't exist. The chemistry teacher doesn't exist. Yeah. But if you can have that content in the language, they can understand it. So you can teach physics in Arabic. You can teach chemistry in Arabic. But how many people have that talent? There are few. But can we put that content in a way the kids can access it? Probably even make it interactive. So the teacher is not physically there, but they can access it through digital platforms.
So, but let me ask a question. I mean, I think most people, when we think of satellites now, I think if you were born, I mean, young people who were born in the 90s to early 2000s, they'll most likely know VSATs.
Yes.
Yeah, they know VSATs, whereby you put it, and then
very small aperture.
Anyone that knows, anyone that knows DSTV obviously knows.
So that's the second good use case, broadcast.
Broadcast, right? So you just use it, for broadcast, But I think in more modern times, The Gen Zs might know it more with Starlink. So how does that relate to?
So Starlink is quite interesting because I love technology. So,
Okay.
and technology sometimes emerging could be very disruptive. So that's one of the things they've done to disrupt the market, which is welcome because at the end of the day, what's the real goal? It's impact, national development.
Yeah.
And if a technology can also do it or bring some great value doing it, everybody should be open to it. So Starlink is using LEO, which is quite a good technology.
It's using what?
LEO,
Low
Earth orbit. So
Okay.
like NightComSat, for example, we use GEO.
Yes.
And every technology has a strength, you know that. So
Yes.
GEO, because it's GEO, is higher up in space.
So it has a greater
LEO is
range.
lower.
Okay.
So because it's higher up, it's like a torch. If it's higher up, you have a wider coverage.
Wider coverage.
If you have wider coverage, you can do bigger things like broadcast. You can broadcast TV. LEO is lower orbit, but it means the bits can travel faster. You're closer to Earth, but you can't do things like broadcast. And to do better coverage, you need a lot of those, let's call it terminals or gateways. So in terms of how you implement it, take, for example, if I wanted to cover Nigeria or Africa with GEO, I need only one satellite. I want to do it with LEO. Like Africa, you need about 100. You need about 100 LEOs because they are smaller, closer, smaller. So you need more of them to get the same.
And is that something that NightComSat will be doing?
Oh, yes. Technology would always have continuous technology. You know, you would evolve your technology. Every technology brings its strengths, and your goal is to reach the audience. Your goal is to serve the market. So as any good technology that is required to support that, you will do that. It's not tied to a technology, it's tied to the outcome for the market.
And do you think, I think for most people who might obviously say Starlink, you know, do you think there is room for Africa or Nigeria, in this particular case, to actually still compete in this global space economy?
Definitely there's room. There is room.
So what do we need to do?
When I did come into the sector, being private sector focused, for example, I was like, oh, it's an open market, everybody competes. But sometimes being also in the public sector, I think sometimes you also have, because private sector does the same way. We invest, we want the outcome. And I think some things I'd like to see is, why don't you have a first right of refusal, especially for government agencies? You know, because if you've invested so much to put a technology, you need to sweat the assets.
Yes.
And you are the biggest market. So I think you should also consider supporting your own. You see what we did with the Ankara? When I was growing up, people used to think Ankara, people wanted to wear Western clothes. Nobody wanted to wear Ankara. People thought, I don't know, there was a perception that is for the poor or lowly or whatever. Now, in these days, that tendency to be proud of the culture, to show up and own that national identity, people will spend more money making an Ankara than the dress they bought off the rack.
True.
And I think it's because we're beginning to own that part of our identity. People are proud to wear their hair natural. They don't want these wigs.
Yeah.
They want to own that identity. And I think we have to start doing that to our own technology as well. Because that's how they also evolve their technology. Because they owned it, used it, made it better, they could expand and they could evolve with it. I think you have to do the same with yours. You have to start learning. And I say that a lot to startups, and I'm saying that even to the public sector, to use and own yours as well. There's always a tendency to want to compare, but the best way to improve it is to use it and maybe give feedback. Yes, to say, okay, I like it, but could we make it like this? Could we make it like that? And once the public sector continues to respond to the market, it's win-win for everyone. It's win-win because we have put back those resources back. We'll make it better, isn't it? It's like, when people talk about capital flight.
Yes.
It's a similar analogy,
Yes.
You're saying, instead of moving the money out, why don't you come and invest the money here? Because if it's done right and you invest the money, you only improve
What is happening here?
what is happening here, and we will improve the outcome and we'll become better. And at some point, we will now also start exporting our technology. That's how it works.
Is there a room where Night Concert doesn't just serve the Nigerian market, serves the African market?
We don't serve only Nigeria. I think most people don't know that we don't.
Really?
And the satellite covers the entire sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh.
The entire sub-Saharan Africa. And we do have some clients that are not Nigerian. Actually, we're meant to be going for something in June. That's to Angola. Because there's some kind of request to, use your services.
Interesting.
So it's like having a gold mine and not knowing you have a gold mine. That's how I put it. Because you're always looking at that other person's copper mine and say, look at him, he's selling all his copper. Everybody's using all his copper.
Well, you forgot
but you forgot you've got a gold mine. You just don't want to mine it. Why don't you mine your gold? And you might be shocked it's more expensive than his copper.
I think the next questions that comes to mind, and I think that viewers might want to understand, is how or what can be done to mine this gold, like in terms of from a private sector perspective. Because investors watch this show, tech startups watch this show. I've seen what you also did with the accelerator program. That means you're trying to stimulate
the ecosystem. We want to build the ecosystem.
What have you been finding from those engagements that you've been going to?
So I think there's some interest coming up, and I don't think the problem is going to be solved overnight.
Okay.
But it's where we're starting from. If I look at where we were and where we are now 2 years later, I was telling you about the utilization. For example, the broadcast. When I started, the capacity we only had utilized 35%. Now, we're using almost 90% of that.
Really?
Yes, for broadcast.
Since you came into office?
Yes.
Wow.
But that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want every broadcaster in Nigeria to know that you don't need to go out. I can give you that service, even better at a cheaper price because you use Forex. Now I'll give it to you at local currency. But I want to see that as well in broadband. You understand? I don't want people to have the perception, or businesses to have the perception, because it's a government enterprise means it's not reliable. It means it's the service delivery, the customer experience will be poor. And that also challenges us to raise the bar, isn't it? Because to serve them, to raise the bar. But we would love to see them even show interest, to even want to try it out. Use it. Try, especially the enterprise market. Use it. Try it out, because it's been a long journey. We have had, sometimes clients will want to try it for like 6 months before they commit. Because they want to poke at it and check, because they're coming with all these ideas in their head that, because it's this, it might be this, it might be. So they have to tick all the. And fair enough, the private sector is responding. We want that, because we don't want it to be is a government thing, so it's only public sector that should use it. We see the private sector respond, and we love that, because that is them not owning it. And in doing that means that we can invest more, we can expand the technology, we can evolve the technology, and we continue to create impact. Because the things we do for the rural, that's the impact part. There's also the commercial part of the entity. So I would love that, because if you enable us in that manner, we want to build the ecosystem.
What has been your biggest wins since coming into office?
I came into office, I met with the team, I did a lot of interviews, I got some people in private sector, I met some other clients, stakeholders, to figure out, what has been the issue, where should we be headed? And we agreed where we should be headed. So we put a strategy together. 3 things we were going to drive. We wanted to make sure that the technology was reliable, the service delivery was excellent, technology was continuous. And we had to translate it for the market. Now, if I look back, it meant a lot. And it meant to do these 3 things, mean there were all so many pillars you were working with: your strategy, innovation, people, branding, comms. So all those pillars are moving to help you achieve that. And if I look back, I think I'm kind of happy. I want more, definitely. I really want more, because I know where we can be. But like I told you about the utilization, when I see segments like the broadcast that we literally own over 50% of the market share in Nigeria, I'm very proud. I'm very, very proud.
Prior to this, it was?
Prior, like with 30% utilization, you didn't really, it was the market was open for all. But now, like we own over 50% of the broadcast market in Nigeria.
Wow.
And then talk about we're entering West Africa to do the same. Broadband, not as much as that, still a lot of work to be done. But I'm very proud of the clients we've acquired because those were tough clients and we used to make a statement. To acquire a client like MTN, these are private sector that don't joke.
Yeah,
they set the service bar high, but you go in there to say, I can match that. So if I can match that, what's your benchmark for not using me? The work we are doing in the defense sector, these are sectors that I've always thought only foreigners should do it. And now you're doing to say, told you, I can do it. Or the impact we are creating in the rural areas, some of the things we are doing. The ecosystem we are building makes me proud. Because when we said that people didn't even get it, why are you running an accelerator program for startup? What has it got to do? Because we needed an ecosystem. In other markets, you stay upstream, people do downstream. In this market, nobody even understands that. Nobody wants to do downstream. Downstream is empty. It's forcing you to do upstream and downstream. But if you build an ecosystem and people see that this can help drive the economy, the digital economy, we want to participate, and you guide them in how they will do it. You support them. Startups start to build. Policies start to be there to support them. Structures, investments are coming in. Then it gets to the point where people build satellites from Nigeria.
That's your dream?
Yes. What is stopping you? You can do it. Then you can talk of launching. In Kenya, people are trying to build launch pads. So that you can launch satellites from Kenya. So to launch a geostationary satellite, it's best to do it off the equator because the equator is closer to space. So you use less propellant.
Okay.
It's more efficient.
It's efficient, financially efficient.
So launchers are always around the equator.
Okay, and we are not around the equator.
We are 4 degrees from the equator. Perfect.
So
close to the ocean.
So
you launch because when you launch, of course, some things have to drop from the rocket. You have the Atlantic Ocean there.
So why are we not launching?
Tell me. Because you have to prep the ground for people to start thinking that way. So you start either from the downstream. People know that they can build application for satellite services. You start from the downstream. People know that they can build software to support the satellite upstream. You start to move upstream. People know that they can then make satellites. People know that they can build software for satellite operators. Then you go up, before you know it. But that's an ecosystem that has to be supported. Because people have to know when we do it, there's a market for it. It will be bought. There'll be policy to support it to grow and all that. There'll be investors to come and invest. And startups will be interested to go for it. So when I see that we have done that program, 3 cohorts, we're on 3rd cohort, and I see what those startups are doing, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. Just last week, one of them was in my office because an investor in Kenya is now interested to give them some form of grant. I needed to validate that they actually did things like this, or they had worked with people like us, and they came and I told them, see, because they worked with us, we still support them to even give them access because we want them to scale. But I'm proud when I see that impact because that's over 50 startups.
Wow.
In 2 years, and it keeps growing. When I see what we've even done with the staff, because people have this idea that if it's government, it's not performance dreaming, people not show up, people don't take it serious. But to see to see how people are beginning to take into the culture, take into the fact that, oh no, this is who we are, this is what we can do. We are proud to work here. Own the brand. A small experiment is when I became the MD, because I'm very active on LinkedIn. I was struggling to find staff on LinkedIn. And then I'll see staff, but they will never say they work for Nightcom staff. I used to come and tease them, like, why are you not proud to say you work for this company? You put it up there. Why are you putting vague things that people don't know that you work for here? And 2 years later, I go onto LinkedIn. I see people just put it up, talk about it. They're proud to say. Sometimes even other people that we do work with, partners and stakeholders, talk about us. That's when you know that, yes, you want people to want to identify with you because they believe that you're delivering and they believe in your vision. So those things really, when I look at it, I'm actually saying that beyond the commercial, the fact that the numbers are in the right direction. But these other things actually gives
I
you the
think
confidence.
I saw a newspaper publication about the rise of the profits in
Yeah, since we started, we've almost tripled our numbers.
your revenue.
Yes, and these are things people told us, nah, you can't do it, it's down, satellite is old. Satellite is old, and new entrants are coming to this market. And massively, the numbers they deliver in Nigeria, the highest number in the whole entire African continent.
Mm.
It tells you the demand is there. You just have to match it. There is an untapped demand. Because look at it, in Africa, there are over 800 million people that are yet to be connected. Nigeria, you still have less than 50% broadband penetration. Why do you think everybody's coming here? This is the largest consumer market in Africa. 230 million people. Even though you sell to only half of that, that's 100 million people.
Mm.
That's more than some countries.
Yeah.
It's massive. And that's why everybody comes here. And you should understand what your strength is. You have one of the youngest population on the continent. Over 50% are less than 25 years. Youths that are digital natives, they're not afraid of technology. They will try anything new, call it AI, whatever. They will try. That's a talent pool. That's a market that is best for technology.
Mm.
You should understand your strength.
How big is this space economy, and how can it contribute to our?
Globally, we believe that at least by 2035, they say it was up to $1 trillion. The African ecosystem this year, people are quoting about $20 billion. It's a large market.
Wow.
Because it has all the things. We talk about launches, not just the downstream of selling satellite services, the ground services, the launch services, the other services layered on it.
Mm.
And it's huge. We can take a share. What stops us from manufacturing some of the terminals here? What stops us? 230 million people. More than half of them are youths. The talent is there. What stops you? What stops you?
Mm. Terminals for
satellites, for example.
Mm.
Just like saying, why don't you manufacture phones here?
Mm.
And what is stopping you from doing that? Because that's how you also build that ecosystem. That's how you create jobs. That's how you grow the economy. Because you are the largest market on the African continent. You are. We are.
Mm.
You're the largest consumer market. Even if you don't even look at it from the consumer perspective, in terms of disposable income, your GDP is larger than most of the, you fall in the top 10. It makes you an attractive market any way you look at it.
If you were speaking to a 5-year-old, what would you tell them you do?
I was in the Space Council. I still with pride. And the Space Council is chaired by the Vice President of the nation. And we're talking about space. And he said a quote. I was so impressed when he gave that quotation. So I'm going to reuse it. Do you know why we go to space?
Oh.
We don't go to space because it's some future ambition or futuristic thing we are trying to do. We go to space because we want that farmer Mecca way down in the village southeast to be able to use technology to help increase his produce, to use technology to sell his produce. We go to space because we want Amina somewhere in Maiduguri to have access to educational services, irrespective of where she lives.
Mm.
We go to space because we want to use data from the weather to support all kinds of people in their endeavors. We go to space because we want Maimuna, that is somewhere at the edge of Jigawa or somewhere at the edge of Brno, to know that if she's sick and she's pregnant and it's complicated and there is no medical professional there, but there's a little health center, we can give her access to a medical consultant that would help her through. That's why we go to space. That's what we do. We make sure there's no barrier in ensuring that people can access technology, no matter where they are. We make sure that we use technology to include people in the digital economy. That's what satellite can do for you. I hope it makes sense to the 5-year-old.
Because I'm like, that
I
sounds.
guess with the digital economy, the 5-year-old will be like, I don't know that. But I think they would probably, they
They'll probably get that.
they'll get the farmer and the teacher.
I
And the
mean, I
student.
think to be sincere, from all you said, I think your passion for startups impacts Africa. I think it shines through all that you've done. I mean, you having an accelerator within the,
Yeah.
within the having the organization have an accelerator program obviously shows your passion for startups. And I think a whole lot more can be unearthed, right? What is that lot more that you hope to see?
So I'd like to see us in the next phase take on more. The first phase, let's say it was a trial. You have never done it before. So the first 20 years was our first foray into space. So we are learning, we're trying to figure it out. We had a failed launch, we did it again, we're trying to get talent. Now 20 years is no longer a teenager. You're now a young adult. In the next foray, I would like things to see us be part of actually developing the technology. So you talk about the startups, part of that innovative process, because you also bring your own requirements. So you make it like when I go to all these conferences, I always talk about, these solutions, you're not thinking about the market when you make it. I tell them, clear out. I tell them, I call it out. I'm like, you tell me that Africa has 800 million people unconnected. You want to sell to the African market. What you haven't considered that 800 is the bottom of the pyramid, is those people living less than $2 a day, like you say. That's the lower end of the market. Why do you want to buy them, sell them a terminal that is $1,000? Where do you think they're going to get $1,000 for? It doesn't make sense. You have to make a terminal that makes sense for the market. That you have to work in a way that you meet the market demands. So it should be like a phone. So if I decide I don't want to use MTN, I don't have to change my phone. I go and get Glow SIM card. It's just I port.
Yeah.
And I keep my number.
Yeah.
But in satellite, not like that. You have to change the entire customer premise equipment, which you've already spent $1,000 buying. And you want to give it to the lower end of the market, and you want to connect them. So you end up seeing government subsidize. You end up seeing governments come in, and that's not sustainable. So if I have to look at the next phase, we want to be part of the innovative process. That's why you're building that ecosystem. You want to build software. You want to be part of manufacturing. You want to be part of building that whole entrepreneurial part upstream and downstream in space. So we can also export the technology. What stops us from having a launch pad off the coast of Calabar and launching other people's satellites from Nigeria? We don't have to go to French Guiana to launch. We don't have to go to Florida to launch. We're just 4 degrees off the equator. Perfect for launching geostationary satellites. What stops us from manufacturing our customer terminal? It's like a laptop. It's like a phone. You can even start by assembling it. What stops you from doing it in Nigeria? You have the largest talent pool on the African continent, and you can use that to sell to the other African markets. So there's so much we need to step up and challenge ourselves. What stops us being part of the policy makers for the next stage of space? Now, we're already trying to do that by, being present at that level, but also influence the agenda, because space is a lot of scarce resources. That's why you see it looks like only in the Western world, because it's scarce. It's allocated strictly, and the way it is, you need to have a lot of resources to even own things like an orbital slot. An orbital slot is like a parking space in space where you park your satellites. Not everybody has it. Not every country has it. It's an expensive endeavor. People fight, but by the time some countries come up, there will no longer be any parking slots for them. But it's when you're at the table, you can be that voice on what you think your market needs to participate, or what you think your continent needs to participate in the space sector.
We'll be launching another satellite
very soon. 2028, first one goes. 2, to be precise.
Wow. Geostationary?
Geostationary.
Wow.
Geostationary. But that's why when we launch that second satellite, we want part of the manufacturing for the lower end should be here. Should be done here. That's one of our requirements. We want to be part of the innovation process. So just don't sell technology to us. Come and be part of our own innovative process. so we can participate in the wider scheme of things. So I'm looking forward to it.
Wow, it's been an interesting time speaking with you. I think my final question will be, such a powerful journey, such a beautiful story. But beyond all the accolades and everything, how do you see yourself? Who is Jane?
Who is Jane? I like to say that Jane is very passionate about seeing how technology can be used to bridge and solve practical problems in humanity. Jane is very passionate about having an inclusive society where people, irrespective of their gender, where they come from, their background, have access and are part of really the greater humanity. Jane is very passionate about making sure that we do that by leaving doors open and everybody can see themselves in the bigger scheme of things, in the good of society. And like I always say, it's always been my vision. That was one of my personal statements. I don't know if you know about personal statements. People have personal statements. And one of my personal statements is that I really, at least in the scheme of when I wrote that, is that I really want to influence my community for good. And that could mean different things, but the outcome should be for good. And I think then I've lived my purpose on it.
Interesting. You have a book that you wrote, that you say you wrote to your daughter, Sarah. Be Fearless.
Yes.
About...
it was actually dedicated to her.
Dedicated to her.
Be fearless. Give yourself permission.
Give yourself
to be
permission.
you.
Yes, exactly. If you were to write another letter today, but this time around, to every young woman like you coming out of AJCT or whatever situation, what will be the central theme? What will be that message that you want to pass to them?
Can I flip that question?
Sure.
So when I wrote that book, it was actually meant to be titled "A Letter to My Daughter." So it was like and that's how I write. So when I was writing that book, the frame, the mode is like, if you're talking to Sarah, what are you trying to tell her? So it allowed me to be vulnerable and transparent, because it's your daughter. You don't want to hide it. You want to give her all the goodies. Like if it's public, you want to, like, I won't tell you about this. I'll keep this my little secret. This is my little, you don't need to know. But it's my daughter, and I was thinking I'm going to equip her for the future. And I wanted to make it all, no holds barred. I want to give it to you. And it forced me to be vulnerable. So it was a painful process writing the book. I will quote Ernest Hemingway that, writing is like sitting at a typewriter and bleeding. Because to recount some of those things is painful. Because you have to go back deep. And that forced you to be vulnerable, to tell the truth about the situation. Not to tell what people want to hear, but to tell the real truth. So that's how I wrote that book. If I had to do it again, and I had to write for a younger audience, why I said I would flip it is that I would want to talk to them about owning their narrative and be really proud of who they are and where they come from. The grass is not greener other places. It's just the framing you have or the perspective you've been sold. The grass is not greener. You can make your own grass green. Now we say, Nigeria never happened to you. Because we are so keen to pick out the bad. I'm not saying it's perfect. You want to say, Nigeria, you want to pick out all the bad, everybody is corrupt, is this. Do you think it's greener other places?
True.
Compared to where you're coming from, do you think it's greener? But do you know when you start to see it differently, when you change the framing, when you ask yourself, what can I do for Nigeria? How can we improve Nigeria? How can I be part of the solution? I think that's the story I would tell. Because it's so easy to complain, to sit on the sidelines. And I think that's because you don't want to do the hard job. The hard job is to be part of the solution. And when you're part of the solution, you see it differently. Then you appreciate the good. Then we move forward. You see, when there are more people pushing us forward, we should be forward.
Yes.
When there are more of us on the sidelines, only just poking at others and telling about how horrible it is, and really telling everybody all the places is bad, how does that help? How does that help? But that's the book I would write. That's the story I would tell.
that makes a whole lot of sense. But if you were to say this is a practice that you've imbibed in your life that has kept you effective, or you imbibe in your day that has kept you effective, what would that be?
So I think if you listen to me, you probably hear that I'm a bit very goal focused. Like sometimes to the details, I will like really set goals. I'm a dreamer. I take risks, sometimes crazy risk. I'm a believer in humanity. So that is, you also want to see the good, and that helps you change the frame, and it helps you show empathy, compassion, because you're also thinking, if I was in that person's shoes, could that be why? It's don't be too quick to judge.
Yeah.
I think some of those things have helped me. Then my core values as a Christian has also been
Helping.
a clear
Guided.
direction, and the fact that I believe in these core values as a Christian meant that the journey I took was a journey of faith. Because to spend 27 years in Ajegula meant, for most people, it was already written, if you're not an adult, you're not getting out of this place now.
You're done.
You're done. We are stuck with the poverty, let's live with it. But it takes faith not to look at the physical and to take that work. And I think that faith would only come. You have an understanding of who you are in tune with. If you have an understanding of, your faith tells you that God has said that He's able to do everything, no matter how impossible it is, and He's empowered you to do it. It takes faith to then take that step.
Towards that dream. Wow. It's been an interesting overall on our conversation. Thank you so much, Ma. I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very impactful. Guys, thank you for joining us on this episode. It was really, really phenomenal. I enjoyed every single minute of it, and I'm sure you did also. So do us one thing. For those of you who are not following, ensure that you subscribe to this channel. For those of you who have not liked or commented, please like, comment, let the channel grow. It encourages our speakers to also be excited about what we're doing and choose to give us more from their hearts. I look forward to catching you in the next episode, and do well to share this with your loved ones. Catch you in the next episode.